Hey, everybody, it's Conscious Medium Brandon Rouse, and welcome to Stream of Consciousness, the podcast that allows our guests to really talk about their own path, their own spirituality, how they got from A to Z and where they're at today, and where they hope they're going. This is a podcast that really kind of opens up the idea of discussion and elevation and really kind of learning where everybody's coming from, as not all paths are the same. For my first show, I wanted to bring on someone that you didn't see coming. By the way, those of you that have been around in my path for a while have probably met Elizabeth a long time ago. She was a staple at the old shop. She would come in from time to time and she would bring her incredible peasant bread, dare I say. Do you remember that? Do you remember you used to bring in peasant bread around?
Absolutely.
Like on the way out of town when you finally moved, you handed it to me and I'm like, where are you going? Like, this is good. I'll pay you not to stay. Or I'll pay you to stay.
Bye.
I know, there you go. You're like, hey, here you go. Hope this lasts. I still have a crust of it somewhere because you know how I roll. But anyway, so Elizabeth, just a little bit about yourself and how I know you. It's you were a student, you took you took a bunch of classes, but I've also had the privilege of really seeing you become. And some people really, they take classes and do spiritual work for a whole lot of reasons, but you were really focused in on your daughter's path. You were focused in on your own personal healing. So I can't think of a better person to start these conversations with than you. And you're letting me get all the bugs out and my kid yell in the background.
That's fine.
I know. We've had 3 restarts, everybody. We've had a couple of restarts. But anyways, Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I know it's well, and thank you for getting the memo, knowing that you needed to kind of do a little Christmas decor because it's the most wonderful time of the year. And by the way, we're going to look back at this show and be like, technically, you got nothing right, Brandon. And then we figure it out as we go along because that's how I learn. But now, where are you now? I mean, I knew you here in upstate New York, but you moved and you and Chris took off and all that other good stuff. Give anybody that might know you a little bit of update with whatever it is you'd be comfortable with talking about.
Oh, sure. So again, well, I was living in Waterville for a very long time, Waterville, New York, where my son still lives in Troy.
We won't hold any of that against you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You're a good man. And so I worked for the school district there for about 15 years in the special education. It's a beautiful small town. It's a very warm-hearted town where everyone really does kind of know everyone else. And this wonderful friend of mine, Katrina, that I work with, who you happen to know, said, "Oh, have you ever heard of Brandon Russ?" And I said, "No." And she's like, "Oh, we're going to go to one of his open mic nights." I'm like, "Open what?"
I love that you call it an open mic night. Funny you should.
So I'm confused, right?
Which is like which is going to be the 5th book, by the way. Keep going.
Right. So we go there, and he's like, I'm like, "Is this a stand-up show or a psychic show?" And she went, "Uh-huh."
Love it. I love it. So that's what your impression was of me coming into it. Like, he better either bring my dad or bring the funny. Either way, I don't care.
Right. So you're going through the room and you're talking, and I'm laughing, and I'm thinking, this guy's funny. And so you come to me and you're looking at me and you're so bewildered, and all of a sudden, before you even start saying something, you said something about you think you might know my father. And I said, well, I think pretty much everyone in our age group knows my dad because he was the weatherman on Channel 13. And then it clicked for us both that we were both on Betty George's Christmas special together when we were 7 years old.
How about you were 7, I was 5.
Right. I was 7.
You were. I was like. I think you were like. I mean, I was a kid, because I think there's a couple of years between us. I'm not. Right. I'm not bringing that up because I need to tell everybody you're older than me. I know. Listen, I have a little more truth than that. So, but it's funny though, because the way that it all kind of came about. And can you say your dad's name though? Because I think that's what everybody would know.
Absolutely. My dad was a beautiful, beautiful individual. His name was John Wolfe. And he was, hang on, I'm clicking my phone because my husband's calling. I'll get back to him. So my dad was the John Wolfe, the hippy dippy weatherman on Channel 13 during the 70s and the early 80s. And he was a beautifully altruistic man. He loved his job. He did one of the first Toys for Tots telethons and the March of Dimes, and he would do funny things like get firefighters to race each other on tricycles to raise money. And he used to do all these like really wonderful things. And he was a really great, great guy. He's a couple of documentaries on Bennington, the Battle of Bennington. So he was just a swell individual. He really was.
And my young age, I remember this. I remember my mom saying, "Oh, they're looking for kids to be on, the I don't know if it was like a fundraiser or if it was down at the station though, because I remember the station was still in Manans. It was in that old brick building, which I think they refurbed and they're still there now. Because ironically, Bob Kovacic just retired. And Bob came in behind him, and he was there for 40 something years.
Yeah.
So it's like, and again, I'm doing a little bit of a call out here to even Paul Cayano, who's kind of stepped in behind him, and Paul's a great guy. I've done fundraising stuff with him, and or just been part of stuff, and then I run into him at Stewart's, and he looks at me, he's like, "I know you," and I'm like, "I think I know you," and he's like, "I'm on TV every day." Like, why wouldn't you know? But at any rate, I just remember being there and whatever it was, and there was also something with. Do you remember the Betty and Moo show?
Yes. Oh
I mean, again, it was also like a big local thing, and to give the nation and the international fans a understanding. Betty and Moo was like a puppet. She had this cow puppet where she would come on and do like just a 3-minute quick story, or just hey, it's Betty and Moo and I'll be here and I'll be appearing here. And she was like one of the first like reader trucks that would drive around, and she was just all sorts of stuff. Anyways, I'm telling you all that story to tell you this one. Betty and Moo was there that day, and I was like in her fan club.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I got one of those like medallions and like a piece of paper. I mean, both are long gone, but I remember I wore the medallion to bed that night, and I woke up with it stuck and I'm bleeding, and I'm like,
"Oh, that's so funny."
Yeah, Betty
that
was
is
trying
so
to kill
funny.
me. So, but it's great though, because then we just reminisce, and I remember it was like in the middle of a class, like here I am teaching like past life regression, or and I'm talking about whatever, and then I'm like, wait a minute, like, and like I would have this recall after that show. And again, in a stream of consciousness, one of the beauties of a stream of consciousness is that you open things up and you let things kind of come in. On the flip side of that, one of the challenges is you don't really remember everything as it happens. So every single time I would talk to you, like they would just show me a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And I remember like in the middle of one of the classes, I'm just like, "Oh yeah, your dad was this. Oh yeah, your dad did that." And then it's like, am I really doing a reading in the middle of class? Which is kind of not cool. But it was kind of residual stuff. It wasn't like I was like, this just in. It was in a bulletin. It was, oh my gosh, this was on my path and I'm seeing it. And you were there to validate it. So you had this blessing of your dad, and then you kind of grew into who you are. And one of the things that the Indigo Children class, I remember, was a big deal. And I don't think I taught it quite the way I teach it now, but I think it was more of like, we just started talking about how kids are very open and very empathic. And you were just identifying your son and daughter in like each one of the things. Like if there were 10 things, you're like 6 of them are one, and then the opposite ones, plus another 6 were the other one. And like you just saw how they just melded together. How did developing your intuition really kind of help you be as a parent?
I love that question. So I had a really good balance growing up. My father, your old-fashioned Irish Catholic. My mother is a First Nations, we call them Native American, and her mother was from Croatia. So I had a very spiritual mother, and so my learning and developing started at a young age. I was very encouraged by my mother. I remember getting my first education.
What kind of learning? I'm sorry to interrupt, but what kind of learning are you talking, like in terms of like who you were spiritually?
Yes, who we were spiritually was of great importance to my parents. And we're the kids that got Edgar Casey books for Christmas, and we were just like,
me too.
So my mom was and my father were very much about who you are, makes a huge difference. And here I have a father who's on TV, and everyone's, they see this ginormous man, and I have my mother who's a costume designer working on Broadway, and they see this, ginormous woman, but they were still about, who are you? Who are you? How are you going to leave this world a better place than when you arrived? So it was really important to them. So it became important to me. And so I had these small evolutions, these that were occurring as I was getting older. And I developed what I call the sense of smell. I have smell-o-vision with spirit. So it just started evolving that, like, I would walk past someone and I would say, oh, geez, you smell like a lemon bar. And someone would be like, oh, my grandmother used to make lemon bars. It just odd things like that would start to occur to me more and more.
Well, and it's funny. Am I sounding all groggy all of a sudden?
A little, but you're fine.
I sound okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Because I just changed my audio. By the way, my audio just got way better. Can you hear me differently now?
Yes, actually more clearly.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, guys. Me and getting all this stuff right. So one of the things I'm really learning with this is that I have to do a tester for even just 2 seconds, like 4 seconds. I would have heard everything and been like, oh, I'm supposed to do this. And as I'm talking, I'm like, why am I getting feedback on this? Oh, because it's a microphone that's over here that's picking me up instead of the microphone right here. So now all of a sudden I'm clear. So first of all, you remember what the clairs are. I mean, having clair gustance with taste and clair essence with your smell. How do you I mean, and you pluck today, so it's probably a good thing. So
European going on.
Yeah, you got Native American and Italian, Irish. Anyway, so but the dynamic with that though, like how did you, like when you were developing, when you were younger, before you even knew what any of this stuff was, did you have hints of it before you got there?
I started writing things down because I didn't understand what was happening because I thought I was crazy.
By the way, what's the first thing I say in every class? You're not crazy. You're not crazy.
You're not crazy. So I basically started charting things, and there would be times where it would go away and times where it would be strong and of course, again, it wasn't until I started going to your classes that I realized this really is a muscle that I had to really exercise.
And I also think that you connected the dots really quick by being able to say, hey, I'm going to apply this to my kids. I'm going to be able to take this to them and say, hey, this is what I go through. So you're going to go through this or something similar, and don't be afraid of it. How is it translated? How is it, and I don't mean to bring up Sydney so quick, but here we are.
Well, here we are at Sydney at 2 years old saying, Mama, can Anna and Coco come over? And I go, sure, thinking they're imaginary friends. But then my doorbell would ring and I'd open the door and there's no one there. And my daughter's screaming, they're here.
Little bit so long as she wasn't in front of the TV, like Carol Ann.
I know. Carol Ann. And with Liam, the same actually. Liam would have things like that. His did not last as long. As many of my friends know, my son is autistic.
Okay.
So he was more heightened when he was little as well. After my father had passed, Liam was having very long conversations with him, and I knew he was actually having conversations with him. Places we would go, and and it was almost like they had their own thing. He'd be like,
yeah.
But that eventually, through his evolution, that faded, but Sid's got stronger. So the stronger Sid got, and she would tell people things, even as a little kid. If she saw someone at a Christmas party, she would tell someone, you're sick. She's like 4 years old, you need water. You need to drink water. Your liver's not right, you
do know that part of the thing with all of this that I absolutely love is, like, these are all stories I had in my background as well when I was growing up. Like, being in church and seeing somebody have like a gray aura, meeting people and just being like, oh, they don't look good or whatever. And it's funny, and speaking of funny, you should say that this is, of course, presented by Funny You Should Say That, the book that is now out. It'll appear on Amazon. I think the actual go live date for them is 12/13. I think for some reason they always do stuff on Mondays for new authors and that sort of thing, or maybe it's the Tuesday, maybe it's the 14th. But you can get it there, or you can click on the website, all that other good stuff. So insert promo here. But it's funny how similar the things are of people that develop. And I mean, Sydney is a working medium now. Like she's doing that. Yay.
She is. She just
I'm
launched her website. I'm going to do my promo, readingswithsydney.com. And she's definitely evolved into and I do want you to give yourself a bit of a pat on the back here, because you helped her to break out of her shell. She was in a tight shell at a certain point, as teenagers do, and there was only so much I could do. There was only so much I could say, well, yes, write this down, or maybe you should meditate like this, and then I started, I asked her to sign up for your classes, and I just started dropping her off at your building. Here, take my kid.
I'll never
Take my
forget
kid,
it.
Brandon.
She walks in and she goes, I don't know why I'm here.
Exactly.
I'm like, Elizabeth, what's going on here? She's like, she'll be fine. Going shopping, going to the Dollar Tree, going to the Dollar Tree. I think you said that to me too. You're like, I'll be at the Dollar Tree.
I'll be at the Dollar Tree.
I'll be at the Dollar Tree.
Listen, I'll be at the Dollar Tree. I'll be back in an hour.
I'll get here when I get here. But what was funny though, and again, I know we're talking about Sydney and she can speak for herself and all of that. But one of the things that I remember with that, and I really appreciate the compliment about her coming out of the shell and whatever, it created a safe space for someone to really kind of work through it. The personal stuff, the things that for whatever reason, the magic is always there. You just put all the things in front of you. Right, which is where consciousnness leads us to. I mean, the road to consciousness is eliminating all the things that are in our way, the social conformity, the social pressures, the peer pressures, the need to fit in, the need to make money, the need to just all of it, right?
Yeah.
And one of the constructs that I remember about her, and I don't think I'm speaking out of school by bringing it up, was how she was one of those people that I learned that quiet doesn't mean that they don't want to be there, or quiet doesn't mean they don't want to participate, because she was one of those people that she would be, and then she would, she would pick her spots, but then when she would start to talk, like it was like a rush. It was a rush, and it was dead on. It was within an inch of accuracy, and it was very clear. And I'm just not talking about delivering a reading. I'm talking about an observation. I'm talking about connection. I'm talking about let's just talk about the elephant in the room and describe the elephant to a T. She knew her stuff. And it's just, she was figuring out how she worked. That's really what was going on.
Yeah. And because she was very confused by, now, again, my confusion with growing up about smell, she has always heard music. Music has been a big connection for her. And starting with, at 3 years old with her dance parties with her dad, he put on ABBA, which was her favorite music. And but one of the things that she picks up on is she hears a song. And how many times have we said, oh, a song brings me back to that day in high school, or that special moment that happened in my life, or it was a wedding, or it was a funeral, or whatever. And that's what she hears. It's like her spirit guides, her team will tap into the person's team in front of her, and they give her a song. And
Wow.
it's remarkable. And every time she does this, people just stand there staring in shock. But she always says, well, I didn't do it, your spirit team did it, which I think is such a beautiful thing for her to say, She's like, well, your spirit team.
I think it's an amazing thing when people really start to recognize that. I mean, as much as I do that, and I joke around a lot in a show, like when I say something, that's just validation. And then they're like, wow, I can't believe you picked up on that. I'll joke around and be like, hey, how am I doing? But I know full well it's spirit going, but it's the equation. It's the spirit equation. And there's three things in every connection and every reading. And I don't care if you're doing tarot, I don't care if you're doing soul path work, I don't care if you're doing mediumship, astrology, it does not matter. What matters is that you recognize that there's always multiple factors. There's you, your mindset as somebody sitting there, me and my connection. Have I done the right work? Am I hydrated? Have I get enough sleep? All that stuff.
Mhm.
And then spirit's just like, okay, what's on the docket today? What are we supposed to know today? And it's kind of like, if spirit has done their work, which, like I haven't yet to know that spirit like kind of dropped the ball on something, but so long as all those things are kind of working correctly, it'll show you what you need to. And some of this too was like a personal healing journey for yourself. And I'm not trying to pull out, details, but I think that you were a great example to her to say, you got to address your own stuff if you're going to get good at that. That's the part I want to hone in on. I mean, how do you think that your journey helped her kind of become who she is?
Well, you learn the yeses and the nos of your journey, right? Because I always say I want to live my life as a yes, but the roadblocks are like, no.
No,
What?
that's real, man.
Yeah,
That's a very real statement.
yeah, yeah. And so, but I tried to give it the lessons that my mother gave me, and also the lessons I've learned from my father, and that just because you question it doesn't mean you can't explore it. We often find that our insecurities can be crippling, and especially when it comes to spirituality, or if it's religion, or if it's sort of a theology you have. People will question, and then they add value to you or devalue you. And I didn't ever want my daughter to feel that way. I always say I'm a recovering Catholic. I know a lot, but
Aren't we all?
I know, I know. And the interesting thing is, I raised my children in a way, in almost in two different religions. I had raised my son Catholic, but I raised my daughter Protestant. The reason I did that was because they both had different needs. I know
One of them need to
Catholic,
worship the queen, and the other one didn't. Like what?
one needed more structure. I always say, like, the Pope is the structure. And
Mhm.
also, at the time, we were practicing Catholics. When we left the Catholic Church and started going to a Protestant church, I found that Liam found discomfort in it.
Got it.
So I was going by their needs.
You know that they're essentially the exact same.
Yeah.
I mean, you do know that. I mean, really, the difference is the Pope and the King now at this point. How do you feel about having, the King of England as opposed to the Queen of England? Our entire lives it was the Queen. Now it's the King. Does it give
Queen
you a
Elizabeth.
different look? Does it give you a different look or feel?
It does. Because it gives me a different perspective, because in my mind, I'm thinking, well, how can a man do this? He's not capable.
So is this like a reversal of things? Is this like is that what this is?
Yeah. In my mind, it is.
I think it gives us an opportunity to be like, well, anybody can do a job. And let's be honest, the Queen's job was not that it was not that tasking. And the king's job is also not that tasking. But how appropriate was it that there was a female prime minister for about 14 days, and she got to say hello to the Queen, and the Queen says, yes, thank you, welcome aboard, congratulations. You're just like,
And she goes, I'm out of here.
yeah, I'm out of here.
I'm out of here.
And by the way, just in case you were wondering, this is mine and her sense of humor.
Yeah.
To a T.
And this is our normal. This is like conversations with squirrels.
It's like, oh, that prime minister, the new prime minister killed the Queen. She's got to go.
You're out.
You're out of here. You're out of here.
All right. So we were talking about Sid.
Yeah, right. Well, we're also talking about like the journey and the really cool journey. And actually, this brings me to a segment of the show. I'm going to bring up the most interesting thing about your chart. It's a really kind of cool, and again, all of your identifying information is going to be kind of, whited out here. But, the cool thing about your chart is how busy your third house is. And I'm going to say this to you, like, the third house, of course, is about communication. By the way, do you ever shut up? Second,
Now,
second of all, it also indicates sibling stuff. And, based on this, you're going to rub some of your siblings the wrong way, and others are going to look for you to do everything. And that's just, and you mentioned five siblings, or you're one of five. That's which number are you, by the way? 4? How am I doing?
4.
So
4.
the way that I see this as a chart, and it's pretty cool because you're very comfortable with being the flibberty gibbet. You're a flibberty gibbet. You talk.
Shit.
You talk all the time. It's the way that you
Love
roll.
it.
But also here, you're opposite of your Chiron. Your Chiron's in your 9th house, which is you're healing. You had to learn how to heal. That is what that indicator is. So to me, the most interesting part of your chart is how much your third house is just, you're just in charge. You just take charge. And whether you're a good leader or not, doesn't matter.
It doesn't. So long as you're moving, hon.
So long as you're going from point A to point B, you're supposed to look like a baby giraffe.
It's supposed to look like that, hon.
Yeah, you're supposed to do that. But the Chiron thing, I think, really kind of, so this would lead to things like, instead of healing, you're going to go distract yourself. Instead of doing your work, you're going to say, oh, I've got 100 other things to do. But you eventually have to do it. And it's sitting in the 9th house, which is the education, the travel, whether it was moving. And I think even when you guys moved, you even said, I just need this. I need to move. So that is kind of an indication where you were getting into a place where you're like, okay, I'm managing this. I'm elevating. I'm finally getting away from the part where I'm learning to heal, and I can just flat out heal. And I think that's really amazing. And it's in your chart. So that's the most interesting thing about your chart. And it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool.
Wow. The sibling thing is interesting. First of all, we're all on top of each other in a sense. Paul was born, a year later, Gregory, a year later, 11 months later, Roxanne, a year later, me, 2 years later, James. 4 of us are in October, 1 of us is in September.
So what you're saying is that, New Year's Eve was a good time.
It was a very good time. Be careful those Whitman samplers.
You never know what you're gonna get.
Never know. Okay, so so you had basically, my mother, at one point she had 4 kids in diapers. So she
it's incredible.
Yeah, give her a lot of credit. She always said she didn't go. I was nursing my son, and she goes, "I never went for the total woman experience. I went for the totaled woman experience." Got those kids. So the interesting thing is we fed off each other creatively.
Yeah.
It was kind of like growing up in the house of the egomaniacs. With the theater and the television, and performing monkeys, basically. So there was a positive and negative to that. There was always polarities to that. And it created a lot of conflict when you have a house full of teenagers, even a house full of little kids. But a house full of teenagers is when it became very chaotic for both my parents to sort of, it is like herding cats when you have 5 teenagers.
Well, and needs get bigger. Right, you begin to need to, have to, when you're 3 years old, and you even said it like, 4 of them are in diapers. Well, that's actually easy. Do they need to be changed? Do they need to be fed? Like, their needs are there. Where then when you get into teenagers, this one needs emotional support because they just hit that part of their life, and this one just lost a boyfriend, and this one's didn't make the team, or this one's failing a grade. Like, the emotional needs change on such a different level, where you go you go right up the chakras. You really do. You go from survival to when you can thrive, and how you help them develop, in certain things. How did you I'm sorry, keep going, because I know you were getting to a point there with the
so
siblings.
my point that I was going to get to was being number 4. And James and I were referred to as the little kids because we were the last 2. We had a little kids club, and being number 4, I learned very quickly that, I know my role in this family. I'm the peacemaker. Well, if you don't have enough spiritual and emotional education to do that, you create a lot of discourse within your family. And then you get viewed as the person who likes to meddle. And so I kept thinking, right. So I kept thinking that my intentions are good. And it was finally when my mom said to me, the road to hell was paved with people's good intentions. And
I
then
don't
she
know
stared
anything about
at
that.
me. She used to fold her arms like, the old Indian that she was, and she just stared. Like, oh no, I get it now. I get it. Yeah. So I it took me a while to break out of the role that I had created for myself. No one said that was my role in life. It was just something I evolved into and felt comfortable with. And so now that I'm older, I have a very different relationship with my siblings. And I mean, and they're all really great people. They're really, really great. My sister Roxanne and I are particularly close, but she also moved down here to North Carolina after she retired to be with me.
She's gonna hang with you too, huh?
Love
Thelma and
it.
Louise ride again.
That's right. That's right. And Paul is one of those people who, again, every kid was fighting for their place, and he's highly intelligent. He's man pretty. He's beautiful. He's so intelligent, and it's like you always wanted to see him break out. And then I had brothers in theater, and they were always, if all the world's the stage, everybody needed better lighting in my house. And it was just, it was just constant.
Right.
And now that I'm older, I see them so differently. They are such amazingly fabulous, beautiful people.
When do
And
you
it's
think you got that appreciation? Like what flipped the switch? Because I mean, I think we like have it when we're kids where we're like, this is, they're straining our resources, they're eating our cereal, they're hogging the TV, they're, whatever role it is that they have, they're taking some sort of resource from us. When did you switch? Like, when did you finally look at them and go, oh, you are cool. You are cool in my path.
I had a huge, very scary switch that went off. I almost died when my appendix ruptured.
Holy Toledo.
I remember the whole outer body experience. I remember looking at myself on the table during the operation. I remember the spirit guide I was standing next to. He looked very much like a Sikh. He was beautiful.
Wait, you had an NDE? When did this happen?
This happened when when my 5 years ago, when my appendix ruptured and I went septic.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember
And
that happening to you. I didn't realize that you had an NDE. So what did you see when you looked down at the table? I mean, not that you weren't interesting before, but shit just got real. So when did you like look at that and go, like, what did you think? Like, I'm dead? Like, what'd you
yeah,
see?
well, the first thing I said is, can I leave now? Can I leave now? And he said, no, we're going to stay here for a few minutes. They have to fix something. And so I watched. And the interesting thing was, I'm looking at the table, I could see my body and I could see the people and they're rushing, rushing, rushing. And then I look at the surgeon who's on a platform, and I turned to the spirit guide that was with me. I'm like, that's not the surgeon I saw when I came in here. And they're like, that's okay, they got somebody, you're safe, you're safe. That's the last thing I remember. And I remember wanting to leave with the spirit guide and them saying, no, we're gonna hang out here for a while. But all I remember was seeing the people below me panicking.
Wow.
So I remember coming out of recovery. I remember my husband and my daughter were there. Sid's holding my hand, and she's doing some reconnective healing. She's in there good,
Of course she is.
And I opened my eyes, and there's this very short, maybe 4'9" man standing in front of me, and he said, well, I'm your surgeon. They had to call me in at the last minute because when your appendix ruptured, we had to remove 14 inches of your smaller intestine, 10% of your colon, and you are septic. You're very sick, and we're very concerned. And I was in the hospital for 2 weeks. then
Hmm.
I had to go back in. So I ended up having 4 surgeries.
I remember how sick you were. I remember you saying, I'm like, hey, checking in. Did you get that whole? I don't even think you knew what it was
I
when you
always
went
check
in.
in with you because I
You're
just,
like,
my body, I'm checking in with you.
usually like, like midnight where you're just like, I should probably turn in this. By the way, we needed to film in the middle of the afternoon to make sure that, your makeup call was set and all that other stuff. Anyways, I'm picking on you. But I remember when you were going through, I didn't realize you had an NDE, and when people that I've spoken to that have had it, and when I read someone that's had one, they usually give me a really good reason why they came back. I mean, for you, it's pretty clear it's SID, it's just sheer that. It's also cohesiveness with that, and being, having a great marriage, and having a, great family, and understanding that, your role. I mean, even though there's distance between you and your son physically, like you guys are still so tethered.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing though, that who comes back, and why do you come back? I mean, for all intents and purposes, if you passed away, everybody would have went, well, of course you went septic and this went wrong and too much and whatever. How long did it take for you to come back from that? Like, how do you feel physically?
Um, Oddly enough, it's only in the, I probably won't be fully recovered for a while. I know it was 5 years ago, but I still have to do, um, I have to go for infusions, iron infusions. I have to,
Wow.
once a month, I get B12 injections. So my body doesn't process, as food properly anymore. And so I've developed sort of other health reasons, other health issues.
Well, is that because intestines are gone? Like some of your process center is gone. It's not necessarily because you were septic. Yeah, I totally get that. It's funny when I came back from that foot infection, like it was amazing. I didn't have a near death experience over my toenails. But it felt like that. It was
Sure.
close. It was close. It was close. It was
Yeah.
really close. Um, I, I remember, being very tired all the time. And then as I've come out of this, I've had to kind of just let myself kind of ease back into certain things. And even when I'm doing spiritual work, especially when I'm doing spiritual work, I'm really driven to pace myself into it. Um, yeah, that's incredible. So if
So
somebody,
since that experience,
yeah,
my I always say my sense of smell is heightened.
oh,
So I spent an entire week in the hospital, and this is why I contacted you. And I kept saying,
yeah,
I cannot, I smell bacon, eggs, and coffee everywhere I go. Bacon, eggs, and coffee. It won't leave me. It's like I can smell it everywhere. And nobody can smell this. And you went, well, that's because your dad won't leave your side.
that I remember. That I remember, because it's interesting too that your senses went on overload, that your senses. And now, did you see your dad when you crossed over, when you were out of your body? Did you see anybody? Like, how far were you to the other side? Because I've
Um,
heard I've heard a couple of different scenarios where sometimes you're like just floating above, you're right next to it, you're in
yeah.
the next room, you knew cognitively something was going on, and then some people just walk right into the light and they turn around and they go, oh no, you're getting back in the pool. How far was your NDE? How far did you go?
I was only like what looked like above the ceiling. Like I felt like I was
Yeah.
2 stories above the body, my body, the body. But I was with this spirit guide. Um, and he just, and I felt him holding me, but it wasn't like our arms were around each other. It was almost like our energy was coupled together. And he allowed me to watch, but I also felt, this is interesting. I also felt like he was stopping me from trying to get out of Dodge. I felt like he was trying to remind me that we're going to pause, and this pause is gentle, and you need this pause, and I'm going to stay with you. You need this, but I'm going to bring you back. And it took me a second. I went, okay, I get it.
Well,
I
and
get
think about how much
it.
pain you were probably in without even knowing how much of it was pain, because the body assimilates to it. When your body goes septic, like it's painful when organs shut down. It's painful when when you're so infected that you don't even know necessarily how bad it is until it gets better. I mean, that's certainly something I didn't realize how sick I was and how cognitively challenged I was. And I was still doing readings. Like I just thought, oh, if I battle through this, I'll feel better later. And I was robbing Peter to pay Paul on the energy level all the time. And I'd be like, oh, I'll just take a nap in the morning. I'll stay up until midnight and do another song or do whatever. And I started to realize that I really realized it afterwards. I really realized it afterwards. And I also love the kind of the best man, spirit guide situation. And I'll explain it. The best man at a wedding's original task was to not let the groom run when he saw his bride for the first time. You know that's what the best man really does.
Right.
Yep. After doing 500 weddings, I was like, I joked around, and I'll never forget it. I'm tell a story that's a little out of school, but it's beautiful. And the person, I still talk to the person whose wedding I did with this. So I did all this research, and I had this whole thing about honoring the best man, in the ceremony, and I had it all written up, and I say, and even had it written down. Elizabeth, you've known me long enough, and you're going to know how funny this is. And I'm talking about the folklore of it and the best man's role. I was going to do it right before the "Do you have the ring?" type of thing. And
Yeah.
every single best man's from the beginning of time to whatever, "Do you have the ring?" Every single one of them goes, "What? Huh? I don't. What? It's right here." Like every freaking time, right? So I'm like, I'm gonna say, and I'm like gonna be cutesy about it and basically say, so the history of the best man, you think it's about the ring and kind of losing your ring. Like I just wanted to kind of get that out of the ceremony. And I give the history of it and about how they would have to tackle, and that's the reason why they wore long tails, so then you could grab onto them, like the whole 9 yards. Like there were specific things with this, but it was about being physically adept and being able to take the husband and tie him down and being able to stand up for him. That's why they call it stand up for him. It was actually
Okay, get it.
to him, and you're gonna marry that fourth daughter of that weatherman, whether you want to or not, right? Like there's no like, because what would happen is the veil would come up and there's like a great surprise, like I got to do this the rest of my life. Like, what is this?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, she got hit by a turnip truck, or whatever, right? So here I am, I prepare it. I prepare this entire thing. I'm like, I'm gonna kill with this. It's gonna be Shecky Russ is marrying you. I'm ready to go. I get there. The best man is in a wheelchair.
Womp, womp.
I'm like, I'm gonna have to edit this.
Yeah.
I still used it, and he still did the I don't know where it is, and we're like, we're not looking for it. But does he not actually lose the ring?
Stop! I love it.
Yeah, they had to kind of frisk him. It was pretty funny, actually. But the wedding ended up being great, and it was a ton of laughs, and people loved it. It was, that was one of those things, and I have to say this, and I know the person will eventually watch this, whether they go back to it or whatever. When you see two people that absolutely should be married, it was one of those. It was one of those weddings where you're just like, oh, it was her second go around. It was his first, I think, but he waited later in life, and she was just they met each other at the right time. Like everything about the story was awesome. And then I try and fuse this like alternative humor, and yeah, it was like a Family Guy episode in my head. Just to let you know, it was terrible. It was terrible. So listen, I mean, how do you like the Southeast? Like, how do you like the move? How do you think the move helped you spiritually?
There's a lot of spiritual growth in discomfort.
Wow, that's pretty good.
I have always been a helicopter mom to Liam and more open to Sid. So leaving Liam was really hard for me. It threw me into a Great Depression. He is an adult. But when you raise a child who has a disability, you tend to become very codependent. And I was more codependent than he was. I needed to be his mommy.
Yeah.
And also it was at a time when my mom was in a nursing home. She had Alzheimer's. My sister had taken on the entire burden, in a sense, of caring for her, as well as my younger brother James. They created a beautiful partnership together. So I had a lot of guilt and a lot of pain, and I was kind of like, I'm not gonna like it here. I'm not gonna do. I mean, I really kind of dug in and had a tantrum about it. Oh, it's so beautiful here. It's so lovely.
I was just gonna say, I'm gonna text you the first snowstorm out here, and I will sound like your dad when I do it, and I'll let him channel when it comes through. And by the way, our winters have actually been pretty mild. There really haven't been that bad. I mean, central New York, like 60 miles west of here, they're already getting slammed. But it gets cold. I mean, it's
cold here today. It's in its 40s.
Boof and who.
I'm freezing. I am sitting by the fireplace. I'm about to turn it on.
Don't toot till we're done.
I've had since we've been here. This will be our 3rd year living here. We've seen snow twice. It's less than an inch. It's like a dusting if we get snow.
Does it shut you down? Does it shut down the city?
Completely. The stores shut down. Everything shuts down. For like, schools will close. I'm driving along on the road like, we're fine. I don't understand. The thing is, they don't salt the roads. They don't, so.
It's just like, it'll be gone in a half hour. Relax, everybody. Calm down.
Honestly.
Enjoy your day at home. Go Amazoning or something. Go do something like that.
But the other thing is, I'm also retired. So that has been during the pandemic, it was, it was hard but easy because my husband was working from home. So I just hang out with Sid, or, you watch, Avatar or whatever. But now that everybody's life is now moving along, I thought, oh goodness, what am I going to do? What am I going to do?
But you figured it out, though.
Did
you figured it out? Well, listen, we're gonna start to wrap up here, because I love this. Has gone really well, and I hope the microphone thing worked out. I won't know till the end, because I still haven't learned this karmatic lesson of testing all my equipment before I just dive right in, and I adjust along the way, which explains a lot. But boom. Anyways, so I like to have a segment, and I'm going to give this a try. I've written down a bunch of questions that I thought would be really fun. Now, here are the rules. It's going to be called 5 Good Minutes. You have no more than 10 seconds to tell your answer, and I move on to the next question. So you're going to really tap into your intuition and give me your first instinctual, intuitive answer without filtering it, tailoring it, or whatever. And if you end up alienating your kids, getting a divorce, getting written out of wills, it's not my fault.
Gotcha.
I'm just kidding. None of them will be all that good. All right. So we're going to, this is the part where I do a fun edit here, and I say, all right, time on the clock here. I feel like I'm a little bit of Richard Dawson, and I'm like, give me a minute on the clock. All right, I just got to pull up my my things here, but I hope we have fun with this. It's a really cool thing. And all right, you ready?
No.
Are you sure? Do you need to do anything to prep? Do you need to take a
wait? I've got my anointing oil and from the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and I've got holy water from the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. So I don't know if I should.
And for some reason, you came from upstate New York via Long Island. It's sweater weather, and you're having a great time.
Here we go, sweet baby Jesus. All right, let's do this.
So let me get this straight. Your daughter sat in front of a TV and said they're here. They didn't move the bodies. All right. All right, you ready? 5 good minutes. Here we go. All right, we ready?
Do it.
Favorite horror movie?
Oh, Poltergeist.
Of course. I've been leading you the entire time.
I know, it's really not, but just go ahead.
Best chakra for you? Third eye?
Third eye.
Third eye? Okay.
Third eye.
Yeah. Favorite pie?
Apple.
Last time you saw a sunset?
Ooh, that was over the summer.
Fair enough.
At the beach.
Where
At the
were you?
beach.
Which beach?
The frig, the one with the pine cones. There's a beach here. There's pine trees.
I'm glad you don't work on missing persons cases. Jesus, for the love of God, what the hell is that?
You know, with the dead body.
The woman. Dead bodies in it. I'm so glad you don't work on missing persons case. Oh my gosh. All right. I'm sorry. I got to keep going here.
Okay.
All right. Favorite 70s TV show?
Not Love American. No, not Love American Style.
Love American Style?
Yeah, it came on after
Friday nights?
before Laughing.
Before Laughing's okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Who's the most famous person you've ever met?
The toss up between Joan Rivers and James Earl Jones.
I'm gonna go James Earl Jones for you on that one. Are you kidding me? I love Joan Rivers, but come on. What's the furthest away from home you've ever been? Whatever home is to you. What's
my heart, honey?
I know your heart's that far away. How far away have you ever been from home? Like, what's the furthest?
Probably Florida. No, Minnesota. Is Minnesota farther?
Yeah, Minnesota's in the middle of nowhere. Southern Canada, quite frankly, love.
Minnesota? Yeah, Minnesota.
Favorite place you haven't been to yet?
Ooh, first instinct was Hawaii.
Hawaii. Chris, jot that down, just in case you haven't figured out what to get her yet. Have you done your family tree?
Yes.
Most interesting part about it?
That genetically I am what I thought I was.
Oh, so it actually matched up, and that was your surprise.
Yes. I'm 35% Irish, and then it's 32% Native American, 32% Croatian, and then the rest was little dibbles.
Wow. So you must have gone really deep if you were able to get that much division into it. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Oh, you're killing me.
I know. It's a good one, isn't it?
I love Deep Space Nine, so I'm going with Star Trek.
Well, of course, you already went with Joan Rivers, and if you're honest, Joan Rivers is Star Trek, and James Earl Jones, of course, is everything that's right in the world.
I'm sorry, bro.
It's okay. I mean, I'm sorry this is the last conversation we're ever going to have, but it's worth it. At least we recorded it. What do you miss about New York?
The people.
I miss your peasant bread. What is your hope for your children?
Oh, that they both spiritually and intellectually achieve a place that creates total peace and tranquility for themselves.
Who is the funniest sibling aside from yourself?
James.
Well, you didn't hesitate on that one. James is a chuckle fest, isn't he?
Oh my God, he is a hoot. Well, we're the little kids,
Favorite tradition your mother or grandmother gave you that you still do?
Oh, I put $1 on my Christmas tree for luck.
$1, huh? $1?
$1.
What is something you should do but you never do?
Exercise.
When's the last time you meditated?
This morning.
How do you typically meditate?
Oh.
Like, do you listen to something? Do you just go outside? What's your technique?
No, I have a special space in my room on the loft here. And I have either chimes or a tuning fork, and I'll cleanse the air first, and then I just go into a deep. I try to find that place of divinity.
You had a good teacher. What was the last dream you actually remember?
Jesus, Mary and Joseph. See, Sid and I were just talking about dreams, and now I've forgotten. Because I do all dream interpretation. That was the other thing I wanted to bring up earlier, but I digress.
Why do you think I just asked you? So what was the last dream you remembered that you documented, that you wrote down in your dream journal?
Oh, that was what wasn't, it was a dream, but it wasn't a dream. It was an encounter with my father-in-law, who is passed this past year, had passed away. And he was trying to give me butterscotches, and he was trying to communicate something to me.
What do you
And
think he
then,
was trying to communicate?
well, interesting enough, the following day, I'm upstairs meditating and I could smell butterscotch. And next thing I know, his clock on the wall starts making panging noises and the hands fell off.
Of course. So,
He's in a I always say, poor Donald is in a self-imposed purgatory. And he's just he's on an apology tour. He'll be all right. He'll be fine.
isn't that great that your interpretation was healing as well? Well, listen, that's 5 good minutes. Thank you so much for being part of that one. That was fun.
What
How do you like that? How do you like those questions? Were they okay? Was they a little too vague? Was they a little too?
No, I love them. It really made me think on my feet.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Well, listen, I am going to actually put in the link for Sid's new website, because as people know that when I come across their path and I connect with them, I celebrate everybody until they don't want to be celebrated. That's my rule of thumb. And she's, when you told me that was going on, I'd already asked you to be on on this podcast. You're like, me? What? And I go, yeah, you'll see. And you were just like, all right, whatever. Your reaction was like so classic. Like, the people that actually work well with me are the ones that are like, I don't know what he's doing, but let's just show up and go from there. Oh, I know the last question I needed to ask you. So, how many aliens have you had connection with?
How many aliens? I do believe one.
Off planet.
Yeah, I do believe one, but I'm unsure.
I think that's part of their trickiness. I think they kind of like make themselves known, but they don't make themselves present.
Yeah.
Like, it's like we went to another world and then we came back with no evidence, and you just have to believe us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I do have a quick note. So I was part of the very first class when you were doing the intuitive development class. I want to say 10 years ago. You said, I'm going to try this out. I'm going to see where it goes. Would you mind doing this with this small group? And we'll see, how it works out. And it evolved beautifully, clearly.
It was almost 12 years ago, just to let you know.
Boink. And,
Yep.
and I said to you, the only thing I can do is dream interpretation. I didn't do it because I used to always hide the fact that I had, abilities.
When did you come out? When did you come out? Like, when did you let people around you know you could do this, whatever this is?
Probably about 2 years after I met you, well, re-encountered you, shall I say? Because I wasn't, not that I wasn't confident. I wasn't confident in the world holding my heart in a gentle way.
And I think that is such an important thing. I think I didn't even, and maybe this is me kind of having the perspective of writing the book. I mean, the book was very cathartic to me to write the book, because I started to get perspective, and there's a lot of stories that were on the cutting room floor. And what I did notice, though, was a lot of the ones that I left on the cutting room floor were ones that were, how do I want to say it? They were the ones where, like, I was inflicting myself into them. Inflicting is not the right word. I was invoking, like, me as a catalyst. I already knew I was a catalyst. It's just, I kept with the stories that I could be a witness to, primarily, right? So, but I think the reason why I'm bringing it up is, one, it's my lone sponsor at this point, but two, it's also the idea that, like, I knew that class would give inspiration to people to go do other things. And I've had people, finish that class and start a community service, or they change careers, they quit their jobs and they go into their passion. They become mediums, they become tarot readers, they do inspirational work. They make that shift that they needed to kind of make. And I don't, as much as I can take credit for presenting the class, I can't take credit for the shift, because you had to do it. You had to do it. As much as, like, every single time we talk about the reading happening, it's Spirit's like, yeah, we're going to give it to him. Right. But you also can't discount the fact that you did the work to get yourself prepared to receive the message. And that's the part that, like, you should get every kudo to, because you did the work. you kept your head in the game, and it wasn't easy for you. I will vouch for you. It wasn't.
Yeah.
You'd like gnaw your teeth and gnash your teeth and call me things. Yeah, you were a little mean at one point, just to let you know.
That's fine. You forgive me, and I'm okay with that.
And
I'm
you were,
okay with you forgiving me.
and but I have to tell you, every single time you had a breakthrough, you had a breakdown first. Like
did.
that is the one thing, like you in this path and our journey. And I remember we were in another class called conscious living, and
Mhm.
Beth Elizabeth, not you Elizabeth, another Beth, Sagnelli, who's just she's a powder keg spark person. Like you can't hang out with her and you can't ask her for help and be ticked off when she rips every band-aid off. Like that's just who she is. She's like, oh, you want to see your soul? Here you go. Right.
Mhm.
So with that in mind, you, like, I watched you go through that and then come out the other side and go, yeah, I got this. I'm better because of it. And
Yeah.
I think that is just one, if I can give you this compliment, it is you didn't give up and you kept going.
Oh, thank you. Thank
Get it?
you.
You kept going.
Yeah. That was a
Yeah.
beautiful segue. I love that.
You know, it's how I like to wrap up stuff. All right, love. Listen, who do you want to send your heart tap out to? Who do you want to dedicate this show to for you?
Oh, well, on the spirit side, I'm going with June and John Wolf,
Okay.
my peeps, my
Yep.
mother and father. And also to my siblings, I love you very, very, very deeply. My children and my friend Ramona, who I love.
And your friend Ramona. Got
My
it. All
friend
right.
Ramona.
All right, guys. Well, that's how we're going to sign off. What a great first show. I hope I get it right over time. We're going to give each other the heart taps to remind one another that we care and love for each other and to remind you to simply keep going. Elizabeth, thank you so much. I could not have had a better first show, except for technical. I mean, my
That's
God,
okay.
I'm an effing train wreck with this. I really am. It's like I've got so much equipment here I don't know what to do with. I'm like, if I ever got into like, skiing or S&M, I would just have all the stuff and never use it. I don't know what to do with it. I don't know. I just turned it on. Anyway.
I just turned it on. I licked it. I don't know what happened. It was sharp.
I can see you. I can see me walking into the studio one day and you're like, did you just put your tongue on my lens? Like, what is that? It's totally
a lovely little zap.
Oh, you're here. You're here. I'm a mess. Oh my gosh. All right. I miss you guys. And Chris, I said hello. Big kisses. I'll see you guys soon. And I can't wait to get a reading from Sydney. I'll see you guys soon.
Okay. Take care, honey.
All right. Thanks, love. Oh, there it is.